again, my little yarnivores and spiderettes. Fiber Spider back again with another tutorial just for you. And today I am super excited to show you my latest creation. This is the Granny Pullover Sweater. Now this video is sponsored by Lion Brands. They also provided the yarn for this piece. This is Pound of Love, and I love this yarn, and I've used it for so many projects, and this was perfect for this particular project. Thank you very much, Lion Brand, for sponsoring this video. And this was so much fun to make. Let me do a twirl for you. So easy to make, and it's really quick too because it is the granny stitch, so you're working within stitch spaces as opposed to within stitches, so it works up really fast. Now, the other really cool thing about this piece is that there's no sewing, there's no seaming. It's a one piece, believe it or not. I can't say enough. I'm just so excited. And, you can alter this to whatever size you want because this is more of a formula tutorial as opposed to a pattern, because this is, of course, a fitted garment. Therefore, every one of us, we're like snowflakes, different shapes and sizes. So of course, you can't go based on the same pattern, so this is more of a formula approach. And it's a really versatile pattern. There are other things that you can do to tweak the pattern as well, which I hope to go into at a later point. Very, very, very simple. Now for this piece, it was a size I and a size H crochet hook. And as far as the yardage, for me, now I'm petite-ish, I'm not entirely petite, but I'm petite-ish. And I used just a smidge over one skein of Pound of Love. I was on the second sleeve, I had maybe like 5 more rounds to go, and I ran out of the first skein. So you really don't need a ton of yarn. I would suggest getting 2 skeins or more, depending upon what you want to do. If you also want it to come down lower, if your piece needs to be wider, I would say 2 to 3 skeins of Pound of Love. You should be fine within 2. That's just my personal idea and recommend. But with that being said, let's get started. Hello again. All right, so first things first, I just want to go over some details and specifics. All right, the colorway of the piece that I was wearing was done in pumpkin spice. Now, as you can see, I have a ton left. I mean, I hardly even, dented this skein when I had to go into it to finish my initial project. And this is what I'm going to be using for today's tutorial. Now, this is the colorway of taupe, and I thought this would be a nice secondary one to make. So as far as the nitty-gritty details, in case if you aren't familiar with Pound of Love, it is 16 ounces, 1,020 yards of acrylic yarn. This is super, super duper soft stuff, and I love it. Also because it's relatively lightweight. Now they say that it is a medium weight of 4. However, I would say it's more of a thin weight of 4. Like for instance, if it was like Karen 1 pound, that would be, I would say, a heavy weight of 4. This is a thinner weight of 4, almost like a beefy 3 weight, if you will. And the recommended hook size is a size J. I'm using a size I because, well, that's what worked for me. Now, of course, you can use whatever hook size works for you as long as your garment fits. I say, hey, more power to you. The only thing is that, yes, you will need one size smaller than the main size hook. So basically what that boils down to is, as far as the ones that I'm using a size I 5.5 millimeter hook. My focus is getting kind of wonky here, sorry. And I'm also using a, come on, hello, there we go, a size H 5.0 millimeter hook. All right, so I'm using these two different sized hooks. Now, the reason why is because when you're doing the neckline, the base around the waist, and the cuffs around the wrists, you want it to be a little bit smaller, a little bit tighter in order to sort of bring it together. Okay, that being said, let's go on to where we need to start. Now, I did actually make sort of a crude drawing here of what we need to do in order to begin. Now, this is actually going to be the neck opening, the head opening for our piece, and that's where we're going to start. Okay, now each of these stars is going to represent where we put a cluster, a granny cluster into. At the corners where we're going to be increasing, I have the number 2 there because we're going to need to actually have 2 clusters at each of these corners into that same stitch. Now, there are a total of 20 stars, and there are 2 dots, 2 chains in between each of those clusters for the initial chain. And there's 20 groups of 2 dots, so that's 40 dots. So basically, it amounts to a total of 60 chains that you will need to begin with, and we are going to go into that, of course. Now, as far as this being, a more of a formula as opposed to a specific pattern, this can be altered. If you want a smaller neck, a bigger neckline, it's up to you, and it did take me a while to figure out, this specifically. Now, if you want to use, a bigger gauge hook or a smaller gauge hook, or, more of these stars, instead of 4, if you want to do 5, or if you want to do 3, it would just be a matter of, I would suggest drawing it out so that it makes sense, and then giving it a go. Also, if you don't want it to be quite so long at the top and bottom, well, you can take one off. I have 8 stars up top, 8 stars at the bottom, 4 on each side. So it's a total of 20. This worked for me. It may not work for you. I would suggest play around with it a little bit if you find that it's not working out for you. Now, keep in mind, another thing to keep in mind is that this initial neck opening, it's going to be big. And that's the idea, because obviously you want this to be able to fit over your head without any issues. Strangulation is not favorable, not in this case nor any other. Now, it will be an oversized opening because we will do several rounds that will cinch this up afterwards. Okay, so that is yet another thing to keep in mind, that what you see is not necessarily what you end up with. This will make more sense as we go on, and I want you to trust me on this. So, how about we hop right in, shall we? Okay, so I just wanted to, give you the specifications before we hopped in, but I think it's time. So, let's hop right on in. Alrighty, so again, make sure that you're using the right hook, by the way. I'm using my size I. I've got my I and my H, okay? Make sure that you're using the bigger sized hook when you're doing this initially. The smaller one, it's only for when you're doing the cuffs, okay? So keep that in mind when you're starting. All right, so I went ahead and I chained 60 chains ahead of time. And what we're going to do is making sure that the chain is not twisted. No, that would be a bit of a problem. Make sure that the chain is not twisted. Okay. And what we need to do is we need to join our chain with a slip stitch. Okay. And going into that first chain, and I want to go underneath both loops, I think. Is that necessary? No, we can go underneath the one loop. That's fine. All right, so going to go into that first chain with a slip stitch, like so. And we're going to actually start at the corner of our yoke. And that's what we're actually creating. It's called a yoke. I believe it is Y-O-K-E, not Y-O-L-K. All right, so going to start by chaining up 3. 1, 2, 3. And then into that same chain space, that same chain right there, 2 more doubles. And that is going to be our first cluster. Now this is, as I've said, this is the corner. So chain 3, and into that same stitch, 3 more doubles. Just like you would typically do in any corner for a granny project. All right, and then chain 1, and again, be careful because we have to skip 2 chains. Now, the initial chain that we did, it'll twist up a little bit on you. Be careful of that because you need to be sure that you're going into the right place. So skipping 2 chains, going into the 3rd chain, and actually, you know what? I'm going to go underneath both for the sake of ease, underneath both loops. So skipping 2 chains, going into that 3rd chain with 3 doubles. There we go. Chain 1, and then skip 2 more chains going into the 3rd with another 3 double crochets. Now this, honestly, this is, I would say, the hardest part of the entire project, believe it or not. You know, I know this it sounds like poppycock, but actually it's the truth. This is the most fiddly part of the entire project. So basically, we have a total of 3. We need a total of 8. And on that 8th is where we're going to make another corner. All right. So that being said, we're going to continue right along. Chain 1 and skip 2 chains going into the 3rd, again with another cluster. Chain 1, skip 2 chains going into the 3rd once again. And what I did initially by just going into the 1 loop, you know, that you're not even going to notice that because we're going to be crocheting on this side as well later to make the neck ribbing later. So really negligible. It does not matter if you're just going into 1 loop or both loops or the back loop. It doesn't matter. So skipping 2 chains again, going underneath both loops. The reason why I'm going underneath both loops actually is to keep the chain straightened, you know, which will help me in the long run. So I've got our 3 doubles here. Chain 1. And where are we at? Let's see, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so 1 more regular one, and then we have our next corner. So skipping 2 chains, going into the 3rd. Here we go. Okay, chain 1, skip 2 chains, going into the 3rd. And if you can get past doing this initial setup, doing the rest of the project, you are going to thank me because the rest of it is a breeze by comparison. Okay, so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right, so now it's this one right here that we then chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and then into that same stitch right here that we just went into before, we need 3 more double crochets. Okay, chain 1. And then be sure that you're counting right. So skipping 2 chains going into the third with 3 more doubles. Now, especially around the corners, do be careful because you might miss one of your chains there. That's why I'm trying to emphasize that, to be careful because you've got this sort of buildup of stitches in the corner. So be sure that you are, in fact, skipping 2. So chain 1, skip the next 2 chains, 3 doubles into the next. Okay, and we've got 3, so we need a total of 4 for the short sides. So skipping 2, going into the third. There we go. I think I got it, yeah. Okay. And this is actually going to be our corner right here. So chain 3, and into the same stitch, do 3 more doubles. Okay, so what we have thus far, we started with a corner, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 for the long haul, if you will. And then for the short side, it's only 4. And then what you're going to want to do is another 8, including the corner. So 7 more. And on the 7th, it's going to be another corner. And then you turn the corner and then do another bunch for a total of 4. So I'm going to do most of these off camera, and I will meet back up with you on how to finish off this initial round. Alrighty. All right, so I'm almost done with my initial round. I didn't want to do it all on camera because it was, a lot of more of the same kind of going on. So almost done. I did want to definitely show you, though, how to finish up your round. All right, so again, going to skip 2 chains. I did my cluster and a chain 1, skip 2 chains going into the next one, which, of course, I'm already flubbing. There we go. Okay, so 1 more cluster to go for this short side that I'm doing. Now, it's really arbitrary, as to which corner you're going into. Really does not make any difference whatsoever. It's just you want to start in a corner. I find it makes it a lot easier. All right, so I did my cluster, my chain 1. We've got 2 more chains down here, which is perfect. It means I counted correctly. Yay! Big applause. All right, so then into the third chain at the top here, going to slip stitch right into there to join, then slip stitch into the next 2 stitches, and slip stitch into the chain 3 space. So your piece should look something like this. Now, this doesn't look like much of a neckline, right? Well, that's where the shaping is going to come in later. So not to worry, it will look a lot nicer. I mean, you saw what I was wearing. So, the neckline will look a lot more polished later on. And you really don't have to worry about this tail either at the moment. You can sew it in whenever, So from here, what we're going to do is we are going to work our way outwards. Now, I had done a video previously on the granny poncho, and this is very similar to that, but where we go with it is very different. So now for each round from here on in, we're going to be doing the same thing over and over and over until your yoke is big enough. So basically what it amounts to is, in each corner here, what we're going to do is start off by chaining up 3, then 2 more doubles for our first cluster, chain 3, and then 3 more doubles into that same space. And then chain 1, and then into the next chain 1 space, well, 3 doubles. And we're going to be doing this all the way around, just as you would a normal granny project. And I'm going to do the first round or 2 for you, because you know me, I like to be thorough. I'm always afraid that I'm being boring or redundant, but I would much rather be thorough so that you all understand what it is that I'm trying to get across. That's the whole point as far as I'm concerned. I don't like to leave too much out. So it's basically just 3 doubles into each space, separated by a chain 1, until you reach the corner, which we are almost at. So you can see I'm just sort of flying by here. That initial setup really, I know it's fiddly. Trust me. I'm only too familiar with that. But once you get beyond that, the rest of it is going to fly by, believe me. Okay, so we're just about at the corner. So in the corner, all you have to do is 3 doubles, and then chain 3, and 3 more doubles. And that's what you do at every corner. And then chain 1, and then 3 doubles into the next space, and so on, and so on, and so on. But like I said, there's no sewing in this project. So, I mean, yes, there are a few ends that you do need to sew in, but as far as pieces, sewing pieces together, no, it's all joined, which is, to me, sort of the magic that I really, really do groove on, because having to deal with seams and hiding them and doing, the blanket stitch or the mattress stitch or, things like that, it can be very tedious and annoying. Believe you me, I know. So we've reached another corner. So again, 3 doubles, chain 3, 3 doubles. But with this, there's no bulky, unsightly seams that you have to deal with later. So I got my 3 doubles, got my chain 3, and then 3 doubles. Now, of course, if the neck opening is not big enough for you, well, then it would be at this point, that you would backtrack and do some tweaking and some fiddling as far as the number of clusters that you would need in order to get the size that you need. You know, after you have the initial opening that we just did, once you have that down, the rest of it will fall into place. You know, that is really, I would say, the trickiest aspect, because if you're making this for a child, well, this neck opening would be far too big. So there is some alterations on the table, you know. So that being said, this is what, you know, worked for me. Now, I do understand that everybody is different, of course, but for, I would say, a quote-unquote normal sized head, which I believe I have, this worked for me. Now, as far as the dimensions thereafter, well, we shall get into that, because the dimensions of your yoke will come into play as we keep going on in this particular fashion, and you'll see what I mean. We shall get to that. You know, I'm not going to leave you hanging. All right, and we just got a few more because I'm in the corner. And as far as how you begin and end your rounds, it's always the same when you're doing the yoke. Okay, just a few more. One more to go. Okay, so after doing my cluster and my chaining of 1, going to then again do the slip stitch into that first chaining of 3 right there. So slip stitch, and then slip stitch into the next stitch, slip into the next, and then slip stitch into the chain 3 space, then chain up 3, do another 2 more doubles, and then a chaining of 3, and 3 more doubles. And that is really all there is to it as far as making the yoke. Very, very simple. Alrighty, so keep going on in this fashion. Okay. All right, so like I was saying, keep going on in this fashion. I can only have like 10-minute long clips that I can then string together. That's why I had to cut off there quickly. Keep going on in this fashion by, you know, chaining up 3, 2 more doubles, chain 3, 3 more doubles into each corner, and then 3 doubles into each space separated by a chain 1. Just keep going on in this fashion until your piece is, you know, big enough. Well, that is, like I said, that is a personal sort of thing. Now, how this works is you fold this downwards. Okay, so now this is our neckline. I know it's a very unflattering neckline at the moment, but like I said, that will change. Now, the trick with this initial yoke is, so this side, you know, will grow outwards, and this will grow downwards as well. So when you are working on your yoke and you fold it down like so, when you fold it in half like so, and you put your head through here, and your shoulder is going to be here. Well, this bottom point, you know, here, you know, here and here, you know, these bottom points, if you can sort of pinch them together under your arm, okay, if you can pinch them together under your arm, with relative ease, okay? You don't want this to be flippy floppy, loosey goosey under your arm with a lot of space, because then you're going to have huge sleeves, and that's not what we want, because for this pattern, there's no decreasing or tapering with the sleeves, which makes this pattern so much easier. Oh my. So when you pinch that closed, can you fit your arm through there comfortably? If the answer is yes, then you're good. If not, add another round or subtract a round or, what have you. That is sort of the determining factor as far as the size of the yoke that you need. Now, for me, personally, what I did was a total of 11 rounds, counting this first round. So right now, I already did 2 rounds, and I'm on the third. Well, I need a total, personally, I need a total of 11 rounds for my yoke. As far as how many you're going to need, well, that depends, But keep going on in this fashion until you have found that your yoke is big enough for you. And from there, I'm going to show you how to do the join and how to continue on with the body of your pullover. Okay, so I'm going to, hop to off camera, and I'm going to do the rest of my rounds, and I will meet back up with you. Alrighty. Hello again. All right, so I've been stitching along, and I did a total of 11 rounds. And this first round does count as a round, not the chain, but where you're doing the clusters. And I did, for me, 11 rounds. And yeah, oh, this looks really flattering, right? It's like a doily bib. But believe it or not, this is what we're going for. And so, yes, I know that the neckline looks less than flattering, but we will clean it up with some more stitching and some ribbing later on. But this is ultimately, this is what you're going for. So as far as the sizing is concerned, I wanted to have it on so I could show you what I was talking about earlier, where when you go to grab both ends, okay, and pinch them together, I'm going to do that right now. Right now I'm having a bit of an issue, but yes, when you pinch them together, do you have enough room, enough wiggle room for your arm to get through comfortably? You don't want it to be death grip snug on you. Otherwise, it's going to be a rather uncomfortable sweater, especially getting it on and off. So you want to have some wiggle room, which I have. So this is what works for me. You may need to do more rounds. By all means, go ahead and do so. It won't affect the overall formula of the pattern, so you don't have to worry about that. But this is essentially where you need to go, okay? So when you are at the point, no matter how many rounds it actually is, when you are at the point where you can do, the pinch test, as I call it, when you can do the pinch test, then you are ready to join, so that from here, we're going to be joining these corners to the back corners, and we're going to go in the round to make the body. And that's what I'm going to show you. That's what I'm going to show you how to do now. And that will be it for this part of the tutorial. We shall continue on after this, though, for the sleeves and the finishing with the ribbing of the neck, the base, and, well, the waistline, as well as the wrists. So that being said, I'm going to show you what to do next. All right. Alrighty, so what I did was I already folded my piece in half, just like you saw in the last clip. And so when you are ready to continue on, okay, now we have here our ends, and we need to ultimately connect these two together. However, when I was doing my stitching, it would have been easier if my join were on this side as opposed to on this side. But that's okay. We will get around that. All right, so what we need to do is, okay, now obviously the sleeve needs to remain open. See, here is where I have my my neckline and my shoulder, and this needs to remain open. However, it will be a join from here to here that we're going to need to do in order to go around, in order to make the body. So that being said, all right, what we need to do. Okay, let's get ourselves situated. I'm trying to make this as, as always, I'm trying to make this as easy as possible to understand. Not always the easiest thing in the world to do, but I am trying. All right, so now because ultimately we're going to be needing to do a decrease at this point, because we only need one cluster here, it will make more sense later on, trust me. So right now, after doing your slip stitch into the chain 3, just start off with a chaining of 3. Okay, this will be part of our cluster, our beginning and ending cluster. Then chain 1 more, because that's going to be our chain space. All right, and then into the next chain 1 space, do your cluster. And then chain 1, and then do another cluster, and so on and so forth, all the way around to the other end. Now, this is where we're actually going to make our first join over here. So what I'm going to do is, since I have my double crochet and chain 1 here, this is where we're going to join to when we come around full circle. For now, I'm going to go all the way across off camera, and I will meet back up with you when we're ready to do the actual join. All right, so be right back. All right, so I'm almost at the end, like I had mentioned. I just need to do another cluster here. And then I'm going to show you how to do the join, which I have found that it really does work pretty darn well. So I'm going to chain 1, then do a double crochet into the chain 3 space. Then, all right, so we have sort of the top layer and the bottom layer. Well, it's easier if you sort of bring them together. Now this is, just as a quick reminder, this is the sleeve opening, okay? And what you need to do is we're lining it up nice and pretty, and it's going to be a 2 double crochet stitch decrease between here and here, these 2 chain 3 spaces. So what you need to do is to start your double in the first chain 3 space. So you're yarning over and pulling up a loop, then into the chain 3 space on the other side, do the same thing. So yarning over, and then pulling up a loop, pull through 2, and then pull through all 3. Now, yes, it looks a little bit open. That's fine. That works. And then to finish off the cluster of 3, because technically it's 1, 2, and 3, but it works. Okay, so I'm going to do that again for you because I like to be clear. It's all good. All right, so I have 1 double in there thus far. Start the double, but don't finish. Then start the next double into the chain 3 space on the other side, and then pull through all 3, and then 1 more double so that you have a total of 3 doubles. That's going to be your cluster, your joining cluster. Then continue on with your chain 1 and 3 doubles along the other side. And I'm going to have to turn my piece here. There we go. So again, this right here, this is the sleeve opening right here. And we just joined. So this is going to be one sort of tube-like shape for the body of our piece. And you just continue on with chaining 1 and 3 doubles all the way across until you reach the beginning. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stitch my way across, and I'm going to show you how to finish up the joining cluster that we started, but we didn't finish. But I'm going to show you how to do that. Be right back. All right, so I stitched my way all the way across, and I am ready to join to where we first started. So I'm going to chain 1, and again, we need a double crochet into this first chain 3 space. Then we need to do the double decrease. So I'm going to situate myself here. All right, so now keeping in mind that on this side we have our double crochet. On this side we have our double crochet. Well, we need the double decrease in between the two. So what we're going to do is start the double on this side, but not finish it. And then on the other side, again, going into that chain 3 space. Don't go in this space. Go into the chain 3 space from below, like so. So going into here, and then finish up your, wait, I have to yarn over first. There we go. So yarning over, going in, and then pull through 2, and then pull through all 3. Okay, so that's 1, 2, and then our third is over here. So we're going to slip stitch to the third chain. Easy way to recognize is that we have that chain 1 because we did, it was a chaining up of 4. So just slip stitch into the one before the chain space right there. So I'm going to slip stitch into there. And so we have our cluster right here. Again, it's 1, 2, and 3. And that totally works. And again, do not worry if this looks a little bit wonky right now. It's totally fine. It is what we're going for. So from here, slip stitch into your chain 1 space, chain up 3, and then do your clusters. So that's 2 more doubles for your first cluster, and then chain 1, and then 3 doubles into the next space, and so on, and so on, and so on. Now, the thing is that the joining clusters that we made are to be treated like any other clusters, you know. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to stitch my way across, and I'm going to show you exactly what I mean. All right, I'll be right back. All right, so I stitched my way across, and I'm almost to the point where I have my joining cluster there. And I just wanted to clarify and show you what I meant about how it's to be treated just like any other cluster as far as when we're doing the body of our pullover. So just got this one to finish, and then I'll show you what I mean. All right, so we are at the point of the join. So just going to go about it as normal into this chain 1 space, do another cluster, nothing new, and then chain 1, and then into this space here, do another cluster. And then chain 1, and then keep going in the normal prescribed fashion. Prescribed, prescription fashion. And just keep going with your clusters until you make a full circuit. Now, so this counts where we did our join, it's on the other side, but this counts as our first round, and then this that I'm doing right now is our second round. Now, what I did for me, I needed a total of, let me just check my notes here. I did a total of 25 rounds for the length of the body, and that, like I said, that worked for me. It may not necessarily work for you, and that's fine. Do what works for you, as I always say. And so let's see, right now I'm over here, and I would just need to scoot along over to here, and I would need to do my cluster in here, my chain one, and then join, just as we have been, with a slip stitch to the top third stitch of here, then slip stitch, and then slip stitch, and then start a new cluster here. That's really all there is to it as far as doing the body. You just keep doing more and more rounds until the body is long enough for the style that you're going for. Keep in mind, as you are stitching along, that the bottom is going to be extended by a couple of inches for when we're doing the finishing, because there's going to be let me see, there's going to be a round of single crochets, a round of double crochets, and then 2 rounds of front and back post. So with that in mind, you are going to have a couple of rounds worth of crocheting. So it's a couple of inches or so as far as adding to the length of the bottom. So at any rate, that being said, I know it's a lot of information to take in, but if you're still with me, thank you. I hope that you're enjoying this tutorial so far. I'm having a blast showing you because it's a lot of fun, and it's a very versatile sort of pattern / formula, and I hope that you guys are finding it informative. And if you're enjoying this, please give a little thumbs up button down below, because I appreciate your appreciation. Also, a big thank you to Lion Brand for sponsoring this video and for supplying me with the yarn. Very much appreciated. And I'm not doing any timestamps per se, as far as row counters and that sort of thing, because it's really much more of a formula, if you will. I mean, for me, it's 25 rounds for the body, but it might be more for you, it might be less for you. It's more about technique. And I hope that you find this technique to be helpful. So listen, guys, that concludes part 1 of this tutorial. And in part 2, like I said, we're going to go into the sleeves and the ribbing, and that's pretty much it, and I hope you guys are enjoying it. So listen, until next time, I want all of you to stay inspired, stay caffeinated, and above all, stay stitching. I love you guys, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.